I discovered an incredible secret. How a beach house turned into a transformative family haven. The waves crashed against the shore as Sarah Thompson stood in the doorway of a dilapidated beach house, her heart racing. This crumbling relic, a gift from her estranged father, felt heavy with the burden of expectations and aspirations she had long buried. What was once a place for family memories now whispered of neglect, embodying her fears of never escaping the cycle of disappointment. It seemed criminal for her to dream of turning it into a home for her rebellious daughter, Mia. Yet she couldn't shake the flicker of hope ignited within her. She inhaled deeply, a combination of salty air and the scent of damp wood filling her lungs, mingling with her trepidation. Could she really take this on? The judgmental stares from her neighbors clouded her mind, voices echoing with disdain. Sarah will never be more than a waitress, just a struggling artist. Those words clawed at her, reminders that she was always just one misstep away from failure. How could she convince Mia that their lives could somehow be different? As she stepped inside, Sarah's resolve hardened. Each floorboard creaked beneath her, just like her own insecurities under the weight of single motherhood. She was a waitress at the local diner, hustling tables while Mia chased dreams that led her toward rebellion. In this moment, Sarah clung to the potential that existed in these walls, a fading promise that needed repair. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the days turned into weeks, the house slowly transformed. Sarah found herself in the attic one afternoon, sifting through dust and cobwebs. Each letter and faded photograph held the weight of stories untold. They spoke of her father's dreams, his pain, and struggles that mirrored her own. She read words that crackled with passion and heartache, each one igniting a fire within her, a desire to reclaim her family's narrative. But doubt lingered like a shadow, whispering reminders of the storm of disapproval brewing from her neighbors. And just when the walls began to echo her laughter, disaster struck. A fierce storm bore down on the coast, lashing rain against the fragile beach house, ripping at the renovations she had fought to complete. The destruction was swift and brutal, leaving her dreams hanging by a frayed thread. With every crashing wave, her hope splintered. Her mind raced with thoughts of giving up, suffocated by the debris of her aspirations. That as she stood on the brink of despair, the remnants of her life spread out in front of her like the wreckage of the storm. The storm felt personal, a manifestation of the chaos within. Would her efforts to reclaim her family legacy be washed away? The weight of her critics surged with every drop of rain, leaving her trapped in a spiral of doubt and anguish. Then, amid the shambles, a glimmer of resilience began to emerge as the sun broke through the clouds. Would this storm galvanize her community to stand with her? Or would she be left alone to rebuild from the ashes of what was lost? As she sifted through the wreckage, Sarah realized she was at a crossroads. The answer remained shrouded in uncertainty. Hanging precariously in the balance, would she have the courage to face her critics, to share her truth, and confront the legacy she wielded so desperately? The first rays of sunlight filtered through the broken windows, casting a surreal glow over the remnants of what had been a sanctuary, or at least held the promise of one. Sarah surveyed the wreckage, her heart tugging at the image of the vibrant beach house she'd envisioned. Now it felt more like a battered shipwreck, tossed by an unforgiving sea of disappointment. She clenched her fists, feeling the sharp edges of a new resolve forming. What began as a desire to create a home for Mia needed to morph into something larger than herself. The wreckage before her was not merely a reminder of loss. It could be a canvas for rebirth. Yet the voices of her past echoed louder than the crashing waves. "You are not enough," they echoed, wrapping around her like chains. Sarah had spent too long defined by the murmurs of doubt, but this storm could be her catalyst, her invitation to rise. Determination ignited an idea within her. She could not do this alone. She needed help, not just from Mia, but perhaps reaching out for community support. Would the same neighbors who sneered at her struggles now lend a hand? The thought sent a mix of fresh anxiety and anticipation racing through her veins. If she became vulnerable, could she turn their disdain into support? As she knelt among the debris, the poignant letters from her father came to mind, a reminder of the resilience he embodied. Despite his faltering relationships, he had been a dreamer too, trying to carve a path against overwhelming odds. What if she channeled that energy? With renewed vigor, Sarah began sifting through the debris, her mind whirling with ideas for repairs and restoration. As much as the physical space needed rebuilding, her own heart required reconstruction. The next morning, she found herself at the diner where she worked, coffee pot in hand, flipping through daily orders. With each customer, she plotted the words she would share, a deliberate strategy to open dialogue about her project. She glanced at familiar faces, those who had watched her struggle in silence, but today, she felt the weight of her intent. "Did you hear about the storm damage?" Sarah said, injecting her tone with hope. "I'm thinking of restoring the beach house. It needs so much and well, it's a big job." She hesitated, the words hanging in the air like ripe fruit, ready to be picked or fall. "Oh, that is tough, Sarah," one patron murmured, her eyes narrowing in concern. "You should really think it through." But the doubt in her words only fueled Sarah's burgeoning defiance. "I'm not done fighting yet," she replied, lifting her chin slightly, a small grin breaking free from her previous gloom. It felt good to assert her intentions, even if the doubt lingered like fog. Days turned into a whirlwind of preparation. Sarah began making calls, arranging for supplies and seeking out volunteers. As the small pieces of support coalesced, the weight on her shoulders lightened, revealing an unexpected strength. She could visualize transforming the once dilapidated space into a haven for her daughter, a sanctuary for healing, growth, and new memories. Yet, the question lingered at the back of her mind. Was this ambition for Mia truly for her daughter's future? Or was it a redemptive plea for herself? Could she shed the layers of doubt and emerge, not only as a mother but as a visionary? As she stood in the remnants of the beach house, her hands calloused with hard work, an unsettling realization crept in. With every action she took, she felt like she was confronting the ghosts of her past, especially the one that was her father. But just when she thought she was gaining control, an unforeseen setback loomed. A notification from the town hall flashed across her phone, a demand for permits for renovations that would take time she didn't have. The whispers of impossibility started creeping back, unsettling the very foundation she was trying to build. In that moment of uncertainty, the realization struck like lightning. The fight was only beginning. Would she have the strength to push through bureaucracy and the lingering judgment of others? Would she prevail against the odds stacked against her? As Sarah took a deep breath, the sun dipped low, casting long shadows that mirrored her own. The battle for her family's future required more than hard work. It demanded fierce courage. The foundations of her new life were about to be tested in ways she had never anticipated. And with each decision lay the possibility of deeper revelations about who she truly was and what she could become. Could she forge a path in the face of mounting opposition? Only time would tell. As she looked out toward the horizon, the waves whispered her name, urging her to push forward as she stood on the precipice of change, ready to embrace whatever came next. The sun rose once more, caressing the wrecked beach house, but today was different. Today, Sarah was armed with a new sense of resolve that wrapped around her like a shield. One annoying notification from the town hall wasn't going to dismantle the momentum she had gained. As she stood barefoot in the sand, she could feel the cool grains beneath her feet grounding her, signaling that she was stronger than she ever perceived. The first order of business was understanding the rules laid out by the town hall. If permits were required, then that was the first hurdle she had to leap over. Sarah did what she needed to do. She rolled up her sleeves and pored over local legislation while making notes. It felt foreign, this dive into the bureaucratic world. Yet it was necessary. Each term she learned, each process she mastered, felt like chipping away at the chains of her doubt. Sarah began to assemble a plan, not just for renovations, but for her own journey back to composure. Her mind raced with strategies. She could draft a concise proposal for the renovation project, highlighting the benefits to the community and the potential increase in property values. Instead of focusing on the negative, how the storm had stricken hard, she found herself identifying how the rebuilt house could become a beacon of hope. One evening at the diner, while serving pancakes to a couple at the corner booth, Sarah spun the conversation toward her project. "You know, I'm trying to restore my beach house," she said, excitement bubbling in her voice. "I believe we could create something truly special there. Something that brings people together, maybe even a workspace for local artists." The customers paused, revealing genuine interest. She could see the flicker of intrigue in their eyes. Each nod they gave bolstered her confidence further. But there was still work to be done. The thought of the paperwork loomed like a monsoon cloud. Her breath quickened as she realized just how much was at stake. This wasn't merely about building walls. It was about reconstructing her own identity. Torn between excitement and apprehension, Sarah fought with a deeper question. Was she ready to face potential rejection from the town council? In a newfound decision, she sought advice from a local contractor she had come to know. Mark was gruff yet sincere, and she sensed he could provide insights that academic legal systems couldn't. The next day, she found him at the diner, sipping coffee and discussing business with a regular customer. "Mark," she approached, adrenaline spiking through her veins like caffeine, "could you help me understand the permit process? I'm new to all of this." His eyes studied her, assessing whether her determination was simply bravado. He softened, a sigh escaping as he leant back. "Sure, I got you. It can be tricky, but if you plan well, you might surprise yourself." His support felt like a gust of wind under her wings. They spent hours huddled in the booth, poring over regulations while Sarah jotted down notes furiously. Words like zoning, inspections, and disclosures became her companions. With each definition she conquered, she felt more capable, like a ship finding its direction amidst a stormy sea. But it also brought a question to the forefront: was becoming a builder of her dreams more about infrastructure, or was it fundamentally connected to her sense of worth? Days folded into weeks as applications were submitted, conversations turned into collaborations, and doubts turned into a quiet persistence. Sarah found herself at the local council meeting, standing before a panel of stern faces. Her voice trembled at the beginning, but grew steadier as she painted her vision: a safe haven for creativity, welcoming families and artists alike. But just before the end of her presentation, a wave of uncertainty washed over her. The voice of a familiar antagonist, the nagging whispers of inadequacy, echoed in the back of her mind. "You can't do this. They won't believe you." Would her plea for support culminate in apathy or rejection? As she awaited their verdict, the room felt suffocatingly small. Would she sink back into the depths of doubt, or surface with promise? There it was, the moment of truth. Her heart raced as she locked eyes with the council chair, who seemed to be weighing her fate. Sarah took a deep breath, ready to confront whatever came next, knowing the answer would either ignite her vision or force her to pivot to yet another path of self-discovery. The silence stretched painfully in that small conference room, a taut string waiting to snap. Sarah's mind raced, dissecting the faces turned toward her, each a potential gatekeeper of her dreams. The council chair finally spoke, voice steady yet non-committal. "We'll discuss your proposal and get back to you." The dismissal struck harder than she prepared for. A tumult of emotions roiled within her as she exited the building. Outside, the salty breeze whipped her hair, contrasting sharply with the stifling air of the council room. But in that moment of solitude, all Sarah could focus on was the tightening knot of uncertainty in her stomach. She had laid her heart bare, sharing vulnerable hopes that now hung precariously. Yet, stepping onto the familiar sand of her beach house felt like a reset button pressed. She stood before the desolate structure, allowing its battered form to push her out of self-pity and urging her to refocus. Each splinter of wood, each missing shingle was a call to action, whispering reminders of what could be. Sarah sat in the shade of her future dreams, her mind whirring with possibilities. How could she ensure her idea would resonate deeper? A newfound clarity dawned upon her. It wasn't merely about the council's approval, it was about conveying a narrative that mattered. In an impulsive fit of determination, she began brainstorming what she could do to energize her proposal, to breathe life back into her dreams. What about a community engagement event to gather input? To feel out interest and validate everyone's creative spirit? Reaching out could garner support, forge connections. She grabbed a pen and notepad. Words pouring out like waves crashing against the shore. Open house, she muttered to herself, an event where locals can share their ideas and dreams. Maybe even showcase local talent. The idea illuminated her instincts. Tangible engagement, rather than bureaucratic jargon, would be far more persuasive. This would turn her proposal from a cold document into a living, breathing vision. Excitement bubbled within her. She could curate an art showcase where local artists had the spotlight, encouraging conversations about the beach house. A place where children painted murals, adults shared their stories, and the community's spirit could weave through every interaction. Plans began to crystallize. Sarah spent days at the diner, tapping into conversations with regulars and artists. Each encounter felt like stitching together a vibrant tapestry of support, igniting the flickering flames of enthusiasm in others. Energized, she pulled together a small team of volunteers from the diner. Mark even committed to help her with logistics. It felt electric, the power of teamwork melding into a shared vision. But as the event date loomed closer, the specter of doubt emerged again. What if people didn't show up? What if she failed to reach the interest she desperately sought? Questions churned in her mind like the Atlantic storm that had wreaked havoc. Yet, somewhere within, Sarah felt the embers of resilience flicker defiantly. If I can't gamble on myself, then who will? She whispered under her breath as she prepared flyers and spread the word about the open house. The day had arrived, and as she looked across the sand, setting up tables adorned with colorful crafts and banners, nervousness began to sink in again. The skies were a washed-out blue, a mirror of her anticipation. Would this turn out to be a redemption of dreams, or yet another reminder of her limits? As guests began to trickle in, Sarah held her breath, heart racing. Excitement mingled with anxiety as she prepared for the moment to step back into the spotlight. The open house felt like stepping onto a stage, and she was ready to play her part. But just as she was about to engage, a commotion erupted near the entrance. A loud voice pierced the air, one she recognized all too well. An authoritative presence from her past that made doubt resurface like a ghost from old memories. It was the very voice that had once rejected her dreams. Sarah, what is going on here? The intrusion jolted Sarah from her thoughts, her heart galloping in her chest as she froze, mind racing. The unmistakable tone of authority that belonged to her former mentor, Donna, ignited a conflict within her. Once an ally, now a figure draped in disappointment. Donna's presence loomed over her like a storm cloud threatening to unleash rain on her carefully laid plans. Are you questioning my purpose here? Sarah demanded, forcing herself to project confidence she didn't quite feel. Each word cracked through the anxious tension. A declaration amidst uncertainty. This was not just an open house. It was a pedestal on which she intended to reclaim her narrative. Donna stepped forward, eyebrows furrowing. This is ambitious, Sarah. But let me remind you, high aspirations without a clear strategy can lead to recklessness. The thinly veiled critique hung between them, almost tangible. For a fleeting moment, Sarah felt that familiar wave of self-doubt wash over her. Recklessness? Had she gone too far, thinking she could connect with the community in this way? But another voice inside her, steady and unwavering, pushed back against the tide. Maybe it's time to redefine what ambition means, she thought resolutely. The first trickle of guests turned into a steady stream as the atmosphere shifted, bubbling with the life and energy of the people she sought to connect with. It was thrilling to observe children painting, their faces alight with creativity, while adults swapped stories and laughter rolled through the crowd like the endless tide. She could almost taste the freedom that came with engagement. Sarah turned to Donna, meeting her eyes. Isn't engagement better than apathy? The defiance in her voice surprised her. We can build a future together, and this is just the starting point. The corners of Donna's mouth twitched, revealing the slightest hint of a smile, but it quickly vanished. You need to prepare for scrutiny, to show them you've thought this through. Let's not forget how the council operates. Her words rang in Sarah's ears, echoing the very doubts she fought hard to suppress. But something inside her ignited again, a growing determination to counter the narrative that defined her limits. This was her opportunity not just to present a proposal, but to craft a story where she was the hero, not the ever-doubting mentee. Taking a deep breath, Sarah engaged with attendees, carefully weaving between conversations while absorbing their passions. With each shared laugh and story, she felt confidence swell within her, illuminating the room. She had cultivated this connection, and now it was blooming. Each interaction planted seeds of stories that could sprout into a shared vision. Suddenly, a group of local artists approached, their interest piqued. They expressed how they could contribute by installing temporary murals if her proposal came to fruition. Art can bring a community alive, one artist proclaimed, eyes gleaming with enthusiasm. Surrounded by affirmation, Sarah stood a little taller. Her thoughts, once muddied with fear, began clarifying like the blue skies above. This was not about just her idea. It was about creating a legacy that showcased the talent and spirit around her, something Donna hadn't foreseen. But just as the positive energy swelled, she felt a tug at her consciousness. Donna lingered just beyond the crowd, arms crossed, watching the connections grow. There was a challenge etched in her expression, as if she were waiting for Sarah to falter. Steeling herself, Sarah decided it was time to confront her fears head-on. No matter how this unfolds with the council, I want it to succeed on my terms, she thought. Pushing back against the old shadows. As the open house buzzed with life, Sarah prepared for the moment of connection with Donna. She had felt the tremors of self-doubt, but it was time to pivot them into a force of self-affirmation. The time had come to transform past rejections into newfound strength. And just as she approached, another voice cut through the chatter, a memento from the past, a voice that could either be the key to affirmation or an echo of her prior defeats. "Sarah," a man called out, his tone commanding attention. "I hope you're prepared for what comes next." The weight of anticipation hung heavy in the air, urging her to make a choice about what her next steps would entail. Would she crumble or rise? The voice belonged to Marcus, an influential figure in the local council, a man known for navigating the labyrinthine politics of the community with ease. Sarah's stomach dropped at the mere notion of his presence. He was not just a gatekeeper but a pivotal player in the fate of her ambitions. She sensed the opportunity masked behind his authoritative facade, a chance to redefine her narrative or stake her claim amidst the doubts swirling around her. "Prepared? For what exactly?" she countered, drawing on the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The open house had become a crucible for transformation. She could either emerge refined or shattered. Marcus stepped closer, his eyes glimmering with both challenge and curiosity. "You're stirring the waters, Sarah. Just remember, change comes at a price. The council won't easily concede to your vision. They need to see the plan linger beyond mere conversation." His skepticism echoed Donna's earlier critique, mingling doubt with a hard edge of truth. But instead of recoiling, something deep inside Sarah solidified. Could she truly bring her vision to life in the face of such resistance? She held his gaze, unwilling to let her resolve waver. "Then let them see. I'm not interested in standing alone. I want collaboration. I'm creating a foundation that uplifts our community. Can you endorse that?" The air crackled between them, an electrifying challenge that sparked her innate ambition. Each word rang with conviction, coursing through her like a life elixir. She had spent too long yielding to others' perceptions of her limits. Failure was no longer an option. Without a word, Marcus continued to observe her, the silence gathering weight. Around them, laughter and chatter swirled like a kaleidoscope of hopes and dreams, enhancing her burgeoning confidence. She was not just representing herself. She stood for all the voices that had long been stifled, now demanding recognition. Just as she steeled herself for a counter-argument, Donna re-emerged, her patience seemingly at its end. "You should tread carefully, Sarah. Engagement is important, but a well-laid plan is what shields you from the storm." Sarah's pulse quickened, her mind racing. Could she transform Donna's warnings into a roadmap of strategic advancement? What if I show you both a plan that we can all believe in? In that moment, a light bulb flickered in her mind, a revelation about tapping into her connections with the local artists, the storytellers, and even the businesses surrounding her. Each had their stake in the outcome. Perhaps aligning interests would provide the necessary scaffold for her dreams. While Donna and Marcus exchanged doubtful glances, Sarah stepped away from them momentarily and sought out the artists who had expressed interest in collaboration. She started weaving their talents and perspectives into a tangible vision murals as testimonials of resilience, stories expressing shared struggles and victories, each piece a vital component of her comprehensive proposal. With each renewed conversation, Sarah felt an unseen force building. She realized that her most significant asset lay not just in her dreams, but in her ability to connect others' dreams as well, a revelation that emerged like a beacon guiding her purpose. All at once, she could hear Marcus's voice echoing through her thoughts, planting the seed of purpose within. If she showed the council that her vision had a sustaining narrative, a reason for engagement that went beyond her narcissistic ambitions, perhaps they could finally see the potential in her idea. The notion gripped her like a lighthouse illuminating dark waters. But would she have the strength to showcase this vivid tapestry of community voices before the council, and make them see the intention behind her ambition? Among the shifting tides of hope and expectation, Sarah felt a darker whisper the challenge that still lay ahead. Could she pull together this collaborative vision into a coherent plan? Or would it unravel beneath her very intent? As she returned to Marcus and Donna, spark in her eyes, the tension thickened. It was now or never. Clarity and chaos danced on the cusp of her resolve. "I will show you my vision, but on my terms," she declared, ready for the next confrontation, ready to reclaim her narrative whatever it might cost her. The room descended into a tense silence, a palpable air of expectation thickening the atmosphere. Sarah could feel the weight of Marcus's scrutiny, and while doubt lingered in the corners of her mind, a sense of determination ignited her spirit. The feedback she'd gathered from her growing network of artists and community members had put her on a new path, a pathway that was less about her and more about what they could achieve together. "I'll need feedback," she continued, her voice steadier than she felt. "If I am to present something, it must reflect our collective vision, not just mine. I need to understand what everyone here hopes to achieve." Donna's eyes softened slightly. Maybe this approach would appeal to her resistance. Marcus, however, retained his impenetrable poker face. "You want to open a discussion? It's admirable," he said slowly, "but you need a concrete plan to gather allies effectively. What you're trying isn't just ambitious, it's a gamble." Grimacing at the word gamble, she understood that he was right. Yet this was no game. It was her future, and now she needed to adopt an angle of strategy over mere passion. "Then let's take practical steps. I can organize a meeting," Sarah proposed, excitement cracking through her thoughtful demeanor. "I'll outline the themes we want to address, work on visual concepts, and bring in everyone's ideas. This is about connecting the dots." Marcus squinted, a hint of skepticism resurfacing. "And you think they'll arrive? Everyone is busy. You need to convince them there's something to gain. So make it worth their time," Sarah shot back, feeling an invincible spark. "We'll begin with what the council isn't offering. A voice." Beneath the veneer of confidence, her heart raced with the possibilities as she planned, envisioning a gathering where vibrant ideas could flourish and where inspiration would thrive. Each artist with their vision, every business owner with their stake, could voice what the community deserved. "What if we create a mural representing each idea?" She mused aloud, eyes darting between Marcus and Donna. She could already see it, an artistic tapestry born from shared dreams and concerns, anchored in their collective stories. Not just colors on a wall, but a living narrative. Marcus's brows lifted a fraction, the first glimmer of intrigue playing on his features. "They might respond well to that. You'd have to pull in some of the more respected locals as well to support your bid." "And I will," Sarah declared with growing resolve. As she juggled the thoughts and potential of her plan, she felt fear ebbing away, replaced by the adrenaline of possibility. Yet as quickly as it disappeared, shadows lingered, taunting her thoughts. The reality of her past failures loomed large. What if she managed to bring everyone together, and it collapsed again? "Just be cautious," Donna advised, her expression less guarded now. "Remember, it's not just about what you can rally, it's about what you can sustain." "Right." Sarah exhaled heavily, absorbing each piece of advice. There was no room for overconfidence or naivety. This was a challenge that demanded meticulous strategy and an understanding of dynamics that reached far beyond her dreaming. As she engaged her mind further into planning, Ideas flowing like a river, the realization hit her. Perhaps the lack of success in her past endeavors was not due to an absence of passion, but to a failure in alliances. Her personal growth was intrinsically tied to collaborative strength. She needed this network not just as supporters but partners in truth. Stepping firmly into her role as orchestrator of ideas, she conceived the first gathering, feeling both daunting trepidation and invigorating excitement. Could this be the change she claimed to seek not solely for herself, but for an entire community? Drawing a deep breath, she turned back toward Marcus and Donna, aware that in the next phase of her journey, she would have to wield both strategy and the truths she was gathering. "I'll make this work," she affirmed, with a steady but unyielding conviction. "And I'm ready to face whatever comes next." But deep inside her, a voice whispered caution, reminding her that while the foundation of her plan was bold, execution was a treacherous arena. As anticipation swirled like a tempest, she couldn't shake the feeling that significant hurdles awaited her, hidden amongst the excitement. Was she truly equipped to face this challenge? The moment loomed heavy, the stakes were rising, and she would be challenged in ways she had yet to imagine. Would she emerge transformed, or would her efforts crumble under the weight of ambition? The journey ahead held both promise and peril in equal measure. The following day arrived with a mix of eagerness and anxiety. Sarah awoke with the sun streaming through her window, illuminating the crumpled notes filled with ideas, plans, and the passion that had been bubbling within her. She understood that today marked the beginning of her metamorphosis. However, despite this dawn of potential, a gnawing uncertainty lingered, a whisper that reminded her of the treacherous terrain she ventured into. As she prepared for the gathering, her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. She needed to be sharp, decisive, and most importantly, confident. The mural idea had to capture not only the essence of the participants, but also her vision of connection and change. This wasn't merely about showcasing artistic talent. It was about fostering a deeper engagement that could withstand the challenges of collaboration. Arriving at the chosen location, a small art studio filled with the smell of paint and creativity, Sarah surveyed her surroundings. The space felt alive, vibrant colors and materials beckoned to her imagination. It was a fitting backdrop for the beginning of her journey. She glanced around, noting the flickering anticipation in her colleagues' eyes as they trickled in, their murmurs merging into a comforting hum of community. However, as each artist settled in, Sarah felt her confidence falter. Presenting ideas required not just vulnerability, but also a degree of authority she had yet to fully grasp. What if they questioned her decisions or dismissed her vision altogether? Each have only to say one thing on it, and she could be back at square one, hurt and doubting her purpose. Taking a moment to breathe, she scanned the room. There were familiar faces, each with their own stories and contributions that mattered. It was essential that she emphasize the importance of their presence not just for her plan, but for the shared experience they were about to create. As she began to speak, the weight of possibility pressed against her chest. "Thank you for coming," she started, the tremor in her voice barely masked. "Today is about us. Our ideas, our stories, our voices combined in a beautiful mural." As conversations began to flow, Sarah's expression transformed from one of uncertainty to engagement. Ideas erupted like fireworks, and with each voice that joined the dialogue, her confidence began to solidify. Artists debated themes, shared past experiences, and highlighted community concerns they wished to address. She realized that they weren't just contributing. They were investing, willing to form alliances and overcome their own insecurities for the greater good. Yet even as momentum built, doubt crept back in. Would these alliances sustain? What if their initial enthusiasm simmered out in the face of adversity? To navigate this, she needed clarity and structure moving forward. A strategy beyond just an artistic endeavor. That in the midst of the dynamic conversations, an unexpected voice emerged. A seasoned muralist, inviting both respect and hesitation within Sarah, expressed skepticism. "This is ambitious. But tell me, what will keep all these voices alive beyond this initial spark?" The room hushed, all eyes turning to Sarah. The question was not just a challenge. It demanded a roadmap for sustainability. She felt exposed but empowered. This was her moment to confront her insecurities, and pull from her newly discovered understanding of alliances. "We will continue to connect, to meet regularly," she replied, her tone finding strength. "This mural is just the beginning. Together, we will guide the narrative, check in on our progress, and ensure every person here remains engaged. We've got to keep the dialogue alive." Agreement rippled through the room, a testament to the trust beginning to form. Sarah saw the change in their expressions as a shift occurred. They could become more than just collaborators. They could be cornerstones of a thriving creative community. As the meeting wound down, she felt a surge of hope accompanied by a flicker of tension. The fear of failure still lingered, but for the first time, it was overshadowed by the possibility of growth. Sarah was ready to face the hurdles ahead, but she also knew that managing expectations, sustaining enthusiasm, and maintaining the collective spirit would be her biggest trials. Her heart quickened as she realized the depths of this journey extended beyond mere logistics. It would challenge her beliefs, her leadership, and her understanding of what it meant to truly cultivate a shared purpose. With renewed focus, Sarah found herself contemplating the strengths they'd unearthed together, and what lay ahead. Just as she felt on the cusp of a true transformation, the resonance of her earlier question returned, echoing louder than before. What was she truly willing to sacrifice to ensure this collaborative success? The answer remained elusive, but she would soon confront it directly. As Sarah left the studio, she couldn't shake the sense that this was merely the beginning of unveiling her own capabilities. The stakes were rising, and alongside the thrill of potential, urgency pulsed through her veins. The future of their collaboration and maybe even her own growth depended on the forthcoming decisions. And with those thoughts lived a singular truth. She was about to embark on a path that would redefine her understanding of partnership and leadership. What awaited Sarah beyond the horizon of her expanding vision? Would her determination be enough to navigate the complexities of human connection amidst unforeseen challenges? The next few days blurred into a whirlwind of activity, each step both exhilarating and daunting. Sarah found herself poring over plans and brainstorming new ideas in an almost obsessive fervor. The mural concept was more than just paint on a wall. It was evolving into a living narrative, a canvas for voices that demanded to be heard. Yet shadows of doubt still loomed, lurking at the edges of her newfound ambitions. As she began to define meeting agendas and collaborative tasks, Sarah was struck by a critical realization. She needed to cultivate not just her leadership skills but also her emotional intelligence. The mural required harmony, and without it, the vibrant colors would clash in messy chaos. She started to implement small group discussions to foster intimacy among the artists, allowing them to share personal stories related to their art, prompting deeper connections and trust. One evening, as she sat in her living room, where bright sketches adorned the walls, the weight of it all pressed heavily upon her. The flicker of her candle cast shadows that danced across her notes, reflecting her internal struggle. Was she being ambitious or naive? The balance between expectation and reality felt precarious, especially when dealing with individuals who wielded considerable talent and ego. The last thing she wanted was to alienate anyone with her grand vision. In seeking clarity, she recalled the seasoned muralist's skepticism. A sudden rush of urgency propelled her to act more decisively. She reached for her phone, determined to initiate one-on-one meetings with each artist. She would open herself up, inviting them to voice their concerns and aspirations openly. This was not merely an act of vulnerability. It was a strategy to reinforce alliances and recognize hidden competencies that could be invaluable for the mural's success. Over the next week, Sarah met each artist, their conversations revealing things she hadn't anticipated: stories of hardship, dreams of recognition, and doubts echoing her own. She saw them not as mere contributors but as partners, each possessing unique strengths that could enhance their collaborative mission. As they spoke, her own confidence grew. She found herself better articulating her vision, weaving their narratives into a cohesive plan that felt authentic and grounded. Yet, with every delicate thread she woven into their collective tapestry, the question of sacrifice remained unanswered. What would she need to forego in the name of collaboration? One restless night, lying awake with her thoughts, she realized she had to confront a foundational truth. She would have to let go of control. Like a conductor directing an orchestra, She needed to trust the artist to bring their strengths to the fore without micromanaging every stroke of the brush. This revelation was both liberating and terrifying, as if summoned by the energy of her commitment. One of her meetings bore unexpected fruit. An artist named Miguel unveiled a concept, integrating personal symbols and narratives into each section of the mural. Suddenly, Sarah's vision expanded, intertwining deeper meaning and personal engagement. This evolution reignited her passion and hitched her resolve to something larger than the mural itself. However, responsibility weighed heavier than before. Would they hold to their enthusiasm when faced with obstacles? The seeds of challenge had been sown, and Sarah sensed that difficult conversations loomed on the horizon. A knot formed in her stomach as the clock ticked closer to their first collaborative paint day. What if elements of their vision clashed? What if egos flared? As she stood gazing at her sketches, Sarah felt both the thrill of progress and the suffocating fear of fragmentation. She knew that the success of their collaboration hinged not only on the mural's physical outcome, but on her ability to adeptly navigate the emotional landscape of her team. With her heart racing, she made a pivotal decision. It was time to set the stage for an open forum prior to their painting sessions, a space where vulnerabilities could surface and misunderstandings could be preemptively addressed. This would be her first major test as a leader, and alongside the anxiety of potential conflict, sat the hope of unity. As she finalized the details, the looming uncertainty settled in her bones. Would this approach truly fortify their shared purpose? Armed with newfound clarity, Sarah exhaled deeply, readying herself to step into the unknown. The question reverberated in her mind. Would she emerge as a leader capable of fostering true collaboration, or would her fears undermine everything she had built so far? Stepping into the next phase of this journey, she could only wait to see how her decisions would unfold. What awaited them when the paintbrushes touched the wall? As the day of the mural's unveiling approached, Sarah Thompson stood before the beach house, a dwelling transformed not just structurally but spiritually. What had begun as a crumbling relic now shimmered with a resurgence of purpose. Echoing the vibrancy of the community she had rallied around her. The murmur of waves blended with laughter and chatter, signaling the excitement that buzzed in the air. Sarah took a deep breath, reflecting on her journey. Weeks ago, uncertainty clouded her vision. She had felt lost amidst the shackles of self-doubt and judgmental voices from her past. But now, as her neighbors and collaborators filtered in to witness their shared creation, she felt anchored in her resolve. One by one, the artists who had once doubted themselves alongside her arrived, each with their unique stories and voices, now intertwined within their collective aspiration. The mural told their tales of struggle, hope, and resilience. Every brushstroke echoed a commitment to community, transforming the wall from an empty canvas into a narrative alive with energy. As they painted, Sarah had orchestrated complex emotions, but she had also learned to embrace the beauty of vulnerability that came with collaboration. In the moments leading up to the unveiling, whispers of uncertainty washed over her again. Dread floated through her mind like clouds bringing forth a storm. What if they don't like it? But the voices of support and encouragement radiated louder in her heart. They had all shared their fears, their passions. This mural was not simply a reflection of her dreams, but a testament to their collective journey. The moment the last stroke dried, anticipation hung thick in the air. Guests standing shoulder to shoulder, the energy pulsed. The crowd parted as Sarah emerged, flanked by artists who had once felt like strangers, but now stood as cherished allies. Today, we don't just unveil a mural. We celebrate our stories, the connections we have forged along the way, she proclaimed, her voice steady and resonant. The joy bubbling within mirrored the vibrant hues sweeping across the wall, and something profound shifted inside her. Every watchful eye met hers. Her heart thrummed as she showcased not just artwork but a thriving community fueled by collaboration. The mural, an explosion of creativity, morphed into a mirror reflecting their journey, no longer limited to individual aspirations, but a shared vision of hope. As the crowd erupted in applause, exhilarating warmth coursed through her. She didn't just receive praise. She experienced the acknowledgement of her personal metamorphosis. Sarah had conquered not merely the physical restoration of the house, but an internal rebirth that redefined her identity. She was no longer just the waitress with a dream, but a respected leader who had catalyzed her community's artistic spirit. Numerous connections sprouted that day. Town council members who had once dismissed her now approached with admiration, eager to support future ventures. Their validation was tangible proof of her transformation. Not merely she had built a mural, but she had forged an imperative movement within her community that had long yearned for a space to thrive. Emboldened by recognition, Sarah felt the weight of her past lift. The skepticism that had once defined her receded into the background, replaced by a solid confidence and an established position as a catalyst of change. She understood now that leadership was not about control. It was about encouragement, shared visions, and mutual growth. Standing before the mural that had brought them all together, she realized she had not just achieved her goal. She had proved that vulnerability and connection could incite transformation. The journey was woven with perseverance, unveiling her deeper sense of purpose. With Mia by her side, embracing what they had achieved together, Sarah envisioned a future intertwined with her community's artistic and empowering endeavors. She felt a surge of pride in proving that she was not just a product of her past, but an architect of her future. The ocean winds blew gently, echoing Sarah's awakening. This moment was more than an ending. It was a perennial beginning, one that reaffirmed her belief in herself, her art, and the power of collective dreams. As she surveyed the mural, she was reminded of each struggle, each triumph, and each voice that had left an indelible mark on her journey. It was a canvas of rebirth and a vivid prologue to a shared narrative yet to unfold. Now was the time for each of you, watching this story unfold, to embrace your own journey of transformation. Stand up for your dreams and don't hesitate to lend your voice to others. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire and challenge you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure more people find their strength. Comment your reactions and theories about this uplifting conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. We each carry stories waiting to be told. Don't wait even one more second to show them that change is possible.